But to get back to some trends, though, in terms of tipping, any other trends you're seeing in the industry, or
Well,
comp based pay too?
there's the obvious one. There's a lot more tips being generated. That's not us. I'd like to make a full disclaimer. We're not the ones asking for tips in any way. We're back office. We just receive data from the point of sale. We're not asking for
So I'm
15,
curious
20,
on that.
30%.
Is that since COVID, the tips have gone up?
Yeah, I mean, so before COVID, I think, you know, we didn't have a lot of these like handhelds. We didn't have a lot of this counter service type stuff going on. Before COVID, I think 70% of transactions were credit card, and then afterwards was like 90. I think we're like 93,
Ah,
94%. So
ah,
all this shift to digital, everybody wants to tap their phone, and so yeah, it required updated interfaces, and those interfaces happen to include, hey, look, do you want to offer a tip with X, Y, or Z? So it's getting, obviously it can be quite burdensome for somebody trying to, go to a grocery store and purchase something and getting asked for a tip. you know?
right, right, right. But that's interesting. I didn't know that the tips, actually increased there after COVID, but that makes sense. But yeah, I do see that. Almost everywhere you are, there's some ask for a tip on that. But that's interesting, and I didn't realize we are moving away from the cash basis so much.
Yeah, it's pretty much non-existent at this point, which is why we've got this huge push towards, digitizing the handling of tips in general. We've encountered quite a few restaurants out there that, they have like trucks show up with cash on every other day or something, and they like hand over 10 grand, and then they distribute that to the employees. It's quite a burden, and it's expensive, and so a lot of folks are moving towards digital ways of pushing that tip money out to employees without making it, economically burdensome for the employees. Obviously, moving money digitally is expensive, like Visa or MasterCard or the banks. They're all moving this money and they all charge money to do that. So you have to figure out, some happy middle ground on how to manage all of that.
Yeah. But with that said, though, too, I've worked with clients. There's a security issue with all that cash on hand too.
Very true. Yeah. And I think most folks are, there's thefts, there's security issues, there's the amount of time it takes, like if you think about it, the amount, like if you're like a multi, 50 units and you've got 30 employees per unit and you are putting cash into envelopes, I'm sure you could just add up the amount of money you spend on envelopes alone. It probably mitigate the cost of any software in relation to that. So yeah, it does get very expensive.